Before I start, a disclaimer. When the Buddhist Fellowship asked me to give a Dhamma talk related to the Dhammapada, I thought of this book I bought many years ago. It's called A Treasury of Buddhist Stories from the Dhammapada commentary. And then I just flip, and then I found the story of the 5 laymen. Then I read it, and I was so happy with it, very inspired by it. I felt I want to give a talk around this story. And the story and this talk requires talking about dependent origination, especially the 24 conditionalities. And I'm still learning, and so I did my best in researching on this topic. And I remember many years ago when Sayadaw U Srilananda was teaching Abhidhamma in Singapore, this is the lecture series that I'm totally confused with. I couldn't understand. Then many years later, U Okansa was teaching. I was in before that I was in Brahma Vihari in the meditation retreat, and there are certain points in the practice you need to read up on things, you know. And there's this term called Upanisaya Paccaya, which is natural decisive support that keep popping up. And I was reading that, oh, this is interesting. This is one of the 24 conditionalities. And many years later, U Okansa was giving the lecture again. I went to study, and I went to the lecture. It was clearer and become really, really relevant. And then Siale Susila was also giving the lecture on it, and I attended. It becomes clearer, but still not entirely clear for me. And then the opportunity offered by Buddhist Fellowship sort of made me read up even more. And you know, sometimes if you are able to talk about it, your own understanding deepens, and that's one of the benefits for myself, you know, as I prepared for this talk. So the disclaimer is this: I'm still learning, so I may make mistakes, and if I do make any mistakes, please forgive me. But I'll do my best, you know, to deliver a Dhamma talk that will benefit the listeners. At least an inspiration, if not putting it into practice, and then deepen the understanding until the realization of Nibbana. So that's the intention. So that's the stories behind this particular Dhamma talk. So the 5 laymen is the story behind Dhammapada 251. So allow me to read it. It's about 2 pages plus, so it's quite short. So this is the Dhammapada. There is no fire like lust, no captor like aversion. Unequaled is delusion's net, no river like craving. This instruction was given by the teacher while he was in residence at Jetavana with reference to the 5 lay disciples. The story goes that these 5 men went to the monastery desiring to hear the Dhamma, and having saluted the teacher, sat down respectfully on one side. Now, in the case of the Buddhas, no such thought ever enters their mind as the following: this man is a Khattiya, this man is a Brahmin, this is a rich man, this is a poor man. I will teach the Dhamma to this man in such a way as to exalt him. I will not do so, however, in the case of this other man. It matters not with reference to what subject the Buddhas teach the Dhamma. They place reverence for the Dhamma before all else and teach the Dhamma as though they were bringing down the celestial river from the sky. But though the Tathagata taught the Dhamma in this way to the 5 men who sat about him, one of the 5, even as he sat there, fell asleep. Another sat and dug the earth with his finger. You can have a picture. Another sat and shook a tree. Another gazed at the sky. Only one listened attentively to the Dhamma. As the elder Ananda stood there fanning the teacher, he observed the conduct of the 5 men and said to the teacher, "Reverend Sir, you are teaching the Dhamma even as thunders the thunder which accompanies a heavy rain. But even as you teach the Dhamma, these men sit doing this and that." "Ananda, do you not know these men?" said the Buddha. "No, Reverend Sir, I do not," said Ananda. Then the Buddha continued, "Of these 5 men, he that sits there sound asleep was reborn as a snake in 500 states of existence. And in each of these states of existence, he laid his head in his coils and fell asleep. Therefore, at the present time also he is sound asleep. Not a sound I make enters his ear." Then Ananda continued, "But, Reverend Sir, tell me, was this in successive states of existence or at intervals?" And the Buddha said, "Ananda, at one time, this man was reborn as a human being, at another time as a god, and at another time as a snake. Indeed, it would be impossible, even with the knowledge of omniscience, to determine exactly the number of times he has undergone rebirth at intervals. But in 500 successive states of existence, he was reborn as a snake and fell asleep. Not even yet he is sated with sleep. The man who sits there scratching the earth with his finger was reborn in 500 successive states of existence as an earthworm and burrowed into the earth. Hence he digs the earth at the present time also, and fails to hear my voice." So that's the second man. Huh? Okay. The man who sits there shaking a tree was reborn in 500 successive states of existence as a monkey. And from sheer force of habit acquired in previous states of existence, this is a key phrase, okay? He still continues to shake a tree, and the sound of my voice does not enter his ears. The Brahmin who sits there gazing at the sky was reborn in 500 successive states of existence as an astrologer. And therefore today, also he gazes at the sky just the same. And the sound of my voice does not enter his ears. The man who sits there listening attentively to the Dhamma was reborn in 500 successive states of existence as a Brahmin versed in the 3 Vedas, devoted to the repetition of the sacred texts, and therefore listens attentively today also, as though he were putting together a sacred text. "But, Reverend Sir," Ananda said, "your teaching of the Dhamma cleaves the skin and penetrates to the marrow of the bones. Why is it that, while you are teaching the Dhamma, they do not listen attentively?" And the Buddha said, "Ananda, you evidently imagine that my Dhamma is easy to listen to." "Why, Reverend Sir? Do you mean that it is difficult to listen to?" And the Buddha said, "Precisely so, Ananda." "Why is that, Reverend Sir?" Then the Ananda asked. And the Buddha continued, "Ananda, these living beings, during countless thousands of cycles of time, never heard of the Buddha, the Dhamma, or the order, and therefore are unable now to listen to this Dhamma which I teach. In the round of existences without conceivable beginning, these living beings have been accustomed to listen to the speech of animals in its countless forms. Therefore, they spend their time in places where men drink and amuse themselves, and therefore sing and dance. It is impossible for them to listen to the Dhamma. But, Reverend Sir, for what reason is it that they are unable to listen to the Dhamma?" The teacher answered him as follows, "Ananda, they are unable to do so by reason of lust, by reason of hatred, by reason of delusion. For there is no fire like the fire of lust, consuming living beings as it does, without leaving so much as ashes behind. To be sure, the world conflagration which closes an epoch burns up the world without leaving anything behind. But this is a fire which breaks out only on the appearance of the 7 suns, and this fire burns only at times and at seasons. But as for the fire of lust, there is no time when the fire of lust does not burn. Therefore, I say that there is no fire like the fire of lust, no grip like hatred, no snare like delusion, no river like craving. So saying, the Buddha pronounced the following stanza: there is no fire like lust, no captor like aversion. Unequaled is delusion's net, no river like craving. So every Dhammapada is very short and it appears very simple, but it's very profound. To really understand them, you need to know the context, how the Dhammapada was taught and spoken. And so this was the context. The Buddha was giving a talk, and there were 5 men there. Some of them were sleeping, some were digging the earth, some were shaking the tree, some were looking at the sky, not paying attention. Some was listening as if he need to remember everything so that he can document. And Ananda was curious and asked the Buddha, your Dhamma is so powerful, because Ananda was completely shaken by the Buddha's teachings, just like Sariputta, just like Moggallana. And he assumed everybody would be the same. Okay? That the Buddha's Dhamma is so precious, is so loud and so powerful, and yet these people are sleeping. Why? And the Buddha says, obviously you thought that the Dhamma is easy to listen to. And then he went on to explain the reason. And it struck me because I have many friends who are Buddhists, who are non-Buddhists. You know, sometimes you share the Dhamma with them, and then they look at you with curiosity in their eye. Why do you believe in this, you know? Why is this so special, okay? And of course, there are people, immediately when they see the Buddha or the teachings, they know this is the path for them. And then with inspiration, they went forth, either as a layperson staying in the retreat center for years, or as a monk or a nun. And then they were full of inspiration. And for years and years, as they practiced according to the teachings by the teacher and the books, some of them did not have any progress. And then sometimes the faith is a little bit shaken. You know, it's like, how come meditating for so long, you know, no signs of concentration, no nimitta, you know? And sometimes there's strong nimitta but cannot attain to jhana, you know, and so and like that. Like I know somebody who just cannot move from 2nd to the 3rd jhana. There are also people who have so much faith, right? Become a monk or a nun. But because of some things, then they disrobe. And recently, somebody was spreading in the WhatsApp group among my doctor friends. There's a nun in the Tibetan tradition, disrobe and become there's an interesting profession in the West. I think they are like providing fetish services. Have you heard of this? So it's really like some kind of sexual services. So we are all like, it's so interesting. How can somebody be a nun and then disrobe and become something to the other extreme, right? And then, of course, you've seen people of different traditions or even different religions, and you can feel that they really can understand the meaning of goodness, you know, of compassion and so on. And yet, when it comes to Dhamma, they do not quite click to it. And sometimes you ask yourself, why am I Buddhist and not a Buddhist? So there are many of these questions. And this teaching seems to point to an explanation, and the Buddha actually explained, right? So I shall analyze this. So the Buddha gave when he told Ananda why there are people, you obviously think the Dhamma is easy to listen to, and do you not know their past lives? You know? One has been reborn successively as a snake. One had been reborn as a monkey and all that. Of course, Ananda don't really know. I mean, only the Buddha, from my understanding, can understand people's past lives by looking at the person, That's the Buddha's knowledge, the realm of the Buddha. So he was saying that. And that was the explanation that Buddha gave. So let us go back to the theories, okay? So this is related to cause and conditions of beings, of us. And the cause and conditions in the scriptural sources is described as this. I did not quote the Pali. I just give you the translation directly. This is the general definition of the principle of dependent origination. Is quoted from this book. Is translated and given commentary by Bhikkhu Bodhi as a general editor. So Bhikkhu Bodhi is for all you may not know, he's a monk I respect a lot, because when he translates the suttas, he's very strict with authenticity. He references quite widely, and he will translate the sutta as sincerely and respectfully as he can, and then he will have explanation at the back from various sources of commentaries, both Pali as well as the Chinese sources. So this is from his translation. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. With this, when this does not exist, that does not come into being. With the cessation of this, that ceases to be. So, most of the time when we think of dependent origination, we consider the 12 links of dependent origination. So that one I will touch on a bit later, is directly related to how to extricate ourselves from dukkha, from suffering. But generally, all phenomena in this whole universe have causes and conditions. Everything is caused and conditioned. Every cause and condition is also caused and conditioned. Beginninglessly. And every result, okay, so the general principle of dependent origination is that it's not one cause leading to one result. It is always multiple causes and conditions resulting in multiple causes and multiple results. And all of them, together with causes and conditions, result in something else, which are also part of conditions and causes of subsequent results. So this is the mechanism behind suffering. And if you look at these principles, there are the conditioned states. Conditioned states can also be understood as results. They are conditioned. Because all states are conditions. Sankhara is also conditioned phenomenon. If you understand Chinese, 有为法, 一切有为法, 如梦幻泡影, 如露亦如电, 应作如是观. So 有为法. So all conditioned phenomenon, all sankharas are results. So they are conditioned phenomenons. Conditioned phenomenons, conditions are the causes, right? Causes, conditioned phenomenons are the results, conditions are the causes. And what is invisible there is the conditioning force, is the how. So between conditions and conditioned states, it is the how, and it is explained by the Buddha in the 7th book of the Abhidhamma called Patthana, which is the one that I was totally confused when I first heard it. It's very, very deep and profound. But as I study a bit more, it was extremely relevant. It answers many questions that begins with why. Why am I here? Why am I like this? Why is he like that? Why do we not click? Why do I like that? Why do I feel uncomfortable with this? So it answers a lot of these questions. So these are the 24 conditionalities. It's very small on my screen, so I can't read it. But I won't go through all of them. It will be very difficult to explain for me, and I also don't fully understand. But just some example. The first one is root conditions. So root condition is like this. There are a lot of mind states have got roots. Roots are greed, hatred, delusion, and their opposites. Non-greed is some kind of contentment, renunciation state. Okay, non-aversion is metta at its root. Loving kindness at the beginning is non-aversion. It's unconditional acceptance. That's the root of metta. Okay, delusion is just this not knowing, right? Non-delusion is wisdom, is clarity. Okay, so these are the root. This root condition the mind that has this root. So, for example, you're meditating on the breath. You know the breath is a breath there. That point in time, the mind has no greed and no aversion. And the mind has a sense of contentment, a sense of full acceptance. So that is rooted in non-aversion and non-greed. And if you know the breath clearly, there is also non-delusion. And if your concentration grows deeper, there'll be a sense of brightness. And then you will have deepened understanding of the breath. And that non-delusion is even deeper. So this is the root behind the mind state of a meditator. Say, for example, you look at somebody sitting so well, and then you are very distracted. And maybe for that moment, you have jealousy in your mind. Why this person sitting so well? Shouldn't be sitting so you cannot tolerate that. Jealousy in your mind. That moment of mind has a root of aversion. No greed, no non-greed, no non-aversion. There's a root of aversion. So that mind state has a root condition of aversion. Object. Object is, okay, all mind has an object. Okay? So, for example, maybe just now when we are paying respect to the Buddha, we look at the Buddha, immediately the mind feels inspired. Okay, a moment it was peaceful. Usually we don't notice that. Okay, but say you're very mindful, you notice that. And the condition behind this peace was the object of the Buddha image contacting the eye. Then the eye consciousness arises, and so on. Many others. Okay, so but I then there's those, say for example, the mental phenomenon has a certain pattern. When we hear something or listen to something, if your mindfulness is very deep, you can see what happens to the mind immediately after that. The eye touch, you see something, there's a consciousness arising. Just before that, the mind is a bit shaken, consciousness arising, and then immediately the mind will process it in the following step: receiving, investigating, determining, and then relishing it in a 7 continuous minds. So this is the phenomenon of mind, if you analyze them deeply. And this mind will, this always happens when there's any mind state, it happens like this. So when it happens, it follows a certain laws. And these laws is all inside these conditionalities. So this present, that's why this arises. When this arises, this arises. This ceases, this arises. When this is present, even in each mind, there is, the mind states is defined by many of its constituents. So they themselves condition each other. And they're dependent on the material base. For example, the mind is dependent on the heart base. The eye consciousness dependent on the eye base, ear consciousness on the ear base, and so on. So these are described in these 24 conditionalities. And all these 24 conditionalities can be grouped into the big 4 because there are many overlaps and repetition. The big 4 are object, decisive support, karma, and presence. I should just explain karma a little bit because it is the core teaching of the Buddha. Karma is volition. It's really an intention. So it's that will to want to achieve or do something. So when that arises, the mind happens with an intention. So this intention, after the mind arises, it immediately passes away. Okay? And then next mind arises and passes away. That intention will result in a situation many mind moments later, either in this very life or in subsequent life. And this is the mechanism of karma. And the conditionality is called karma pachayo, or karma condition, or karmic force. So I will explain later when I talk about the 12 links of dependent origination. But today I want to talk mostly on the decisive support, the second one. The decisive support has got three conditions: object decisive support, proximity decisive support, and natural decisive support. I'm guessing that maybe some of you may not be following, so maybe a bit boring. So maybe I'll just say that the one that I want to emphasize is the number 3, natural decisive support. But just a brief note on object decisive. Sometimes when the object is very, very beautiful or very, very inspiring, that is the decisive one that causes subsequent mind moments. So, for example, we may be very unhappy coming here with lots of thought thinking, distractions, worry about yesterday and tomorrow. Then coming here, looking at the Dhamma, the Buddhist fellowship, or the Buddha, immediately our mind switch. Sometimes say you're very messy in your mind, you go to a shopping mall, it doesn't help because there's no object decisive support. But come here, you look at this, immediately there's object decisive support. Your mind stream changes. Okay? Proximity decisive support is just proximity decisive support. When this happens, that necessarily must happen. So it's when you go into vipassana on the mind, then you will see that the proximity and the decisive support. But I want to talk about the natural decisive support because it's more. I think you can identify probably. So there's a wide relation. So all past mental and physical phenomena strongly efficacious for experience in a future time. So for example, why? Sometimes you can. I have a patient with dementia. Used to be a professor, very high ranking in the university, and according to his wife, he was very stressed at work. I know. I mean, those of us working in management, admin, okay. You can call it politics, but Buddhists, we call it defilements. You have, I also have, So, during his dementia, Alzheimer's disease, you have phases, right? When you're alert, when you're drowsy. So, there are times when he's delirious and not alert. The wife says that he's arguing as if he's in a meeting. Talking and then fighting for something he believes in, that kind of things. And then there are also people with dementia, they'll tell me, I have another patient, she'll tell me about her mom is there, she's talking with the mom, and then the mom just chit-chat with her and she's chatting with the mom. Then I've also seen, I talk about dementia a lot because I deal a lot with dementia, and when dementia, they no longer have that cognitive inhibition, they are their true self, okay? So many years ago, I had this patient living in Tiong Bahru walk-up apartment. The daughter-in-law was very, very stressed by her because when she sits up, she wants to lie down. Lie down, she wants to sit up. Then sit up, I want to lie down, then lie down, I want to sit up. So there is incessant. And if you don't attend to her, she'll be shouting and screaming, although not really, really loudly, but it is really naggy, he's there all the time, and the daughter-in-law was very stressed. So she said she don't know why. When she was well, years ago, she was a very good and caring mother-in-law. Okay? But I don't know why after dementia she's like that, after a series of stroke. And then as we just exploring, as a doctor, I was very young at that time. So I was listening to the story, just say, how was she like? I say, don't know, but I heard from my husband when she was young, she was in Penang. She was, among the many stories, what sort of I felt seems to be significant was about how she was abandoned as a baby and was adopted by the adopted family. the adopted family has another daughter, so they're like sisters. And the adopted family is always more caring to the sister. And the sister is also more beautiful and smarter. And they don't pay a lot of attention to her. And so I'm just thinking, that this might have resulted in somebody who is always trying to please and extremely kind. But when dementia sets in, the attention-seeking, insecurity just happen, So these are cases of dementia. But many of us, you can also experience this. Like, I don't know about your experience in coming to the Dhamma, Buddha's teachings. But I know of people, they have learned so many things, different religion, different tradition. But when they listen to the Dhamma, immediately they felt affinity, that they felt this is right. They didn't even need to have complete proof of it. Another example is Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana. Just one stanza from Moggallana to Sariputta and from Asaji to Sariputta. Sariputta to Moggallana and Asaji to Sariputta. Of that, the principles of dependent origination. What happens? The Buddha explained the causes, and that end, right? Something to this effect. I can't remember. And with that phrase, Sariputta. Sorry, I got mistaken. I can't remember. Moggallana became enlightened immediately. Sariputta became at least a stream enterer. He realized Nibbana immediately. And Sariputta a bit later. So there are all these things. Also day to day, you can see, why you fall in love with this person and not that person. Okay? Why do you can't get along with that person when everybody could? And why do you like? Why? Like, for example, when I was a kid, I like to paint. I like to draw. I painted everything on the ground. And why? Where did that come from? There's no artist in my family, So anyway, when this particular conditionality explains these things. Okay, so in the examples given, it's all past mental and physical phenomena strongly efficacious for experience in a future time. Similarly, for people who practice very easily, they might have practiced meditation before. Okay, I have some friends, most of us, to practice deep concentration, you need seclusion, you need to go to a retreat and all that. There are some friends of mine, even in Singapore, their concentration can be so deep and they can attain to jhana, So, So later when they practice dependent origination, many of these questions become answered. So examples are past behaviors, habits, inspiration are faith. Aspiration is your determination. Like sometimes you see a teacher, you're full of faith and you aspire to be like him. Like the Bodhisattva Sumedha, when he saw Buddha Kassapa, Dipankara, when he could become an arahant there and then, he did not want. He was so inspired by Buddha Dipankara that he aspired to be a Buddha, like Buddha Dipankara. So because of that, etc., they have the current resultant conditioned states. And usually the past behaviors, habits, inspiration, and so on are driven by delusions, craving, lust, and aversion. You can check, okay? Okay, so like for example, if we say for example, I'm giving a Dhamma talk here. So for a moment, I feel very happy with it. Okay, it may be a wholesome mind. But I felt there are moments in the mind state, there was attachment to this, to the concept of being a a teacher spreading the Dhamma, or to an image of people paying attention on me. And at that moment, that happy feeling create an attachment to this state. And as a result of that, it drives my subsequent decisions of my existence and my behavior and my activities. And slowly, I cultivate into a certain personality, and it will shape my destiny. And surely, because this is rooted in attachment is rooted in delusion, the wish of being a teacher, being showered with attention by the students, will come true, either in this life or the next, because the personality, the character, and the activities supported that. So it's driven by delusion and greed and lust, for example. Okay, so that is behind the Dhammapada. Okay, that lust, aversion, and so on. But that depends on this. Do you believe in past lives and afterlives? Okay. Some Buddhists believe everything the Buddha says but past lives and future lives. Okay? Because there is no proof. Okay? But some Buddhists, because of some reasons, I will call it natural decisive support, they can take this with faith. Okay? So there are many realms of existence. Oh, too small, I cannot read. Okay, so from the bottom is the hell being, the ghosts, the asuras, and the animals, humans. Then above it are all the devas, all the gods. From the lower 4 great kings to the Tavatimsa, gods of the 33, Yamadeva to Sita heaven, and so on. So all the way to the Brahma realms. Brahmas are very, very deep, like just now I was listening to a YouTube by a Indian guru. My friend was saying, hey, is he teaching the Dhamma? And listen to it. He, just went to a certain place, a hill, and then sat. What he thought was 10 minutes became a few hours, and there are tears flowing from his eyes. And subsequently he was able to do that. And he went for a picnic with his family and sat for 7 hours. And there's once he sat for 30 days continuously. And in India, being Indian, everybody come and offer. And then after he got out from his samadhi, people asking him questions. So, that was very deep samadhi state. And what is the condition? Probably past lives as Brahmas. I do not know for sure, but this sounds like the condition for somebody who can sit in samadhi for so long. So the understanding of this condition phenomenon, to really be complete in your understanding, past lives and future lives will have to come into the understanding. Okay? And when you and past lives, there are many, many of these realms described by the Buddha. And how what's the mechanism of this? So in the practice of deep vipassana is defined as seeing ultimate realities, the 5 aggregates, and their causes in many, many ways, as many as you can. The Buddha describes 11 ways in the suttas, as impermanent suffering non-self. So as you do that, your wisdom will grow. And in order to understand causes, you need to see what happened before this mind, all the way to at the beginning of this life. So this is the way it's described. Also very small. Maybe I shouldn't have this slide, but never mind. Okay, I'll just explain. As a person is dying, the mind is a bit weak. So even though you may be very knowledgeable in the Dhamma, and you remember, letting go. But when you're dying, there is a lot of lack of oxygen in the brain. Okay, your body is weak, your blood pressure is low, you may be having hypoglycemia, hyperkalemia, your kidney is failing, your heart is failing, all sorts of reasons. And you have, your brain will be very weak. And at that time, you cannot take intellectual understanding as your refuge. Okay? So at that time, you're helpless. Your mind will be having all sorts of emotions and images helplessly. And if the image is one that is wholesome, for example, before you die, you're almost like dreaming and seeing things. But in your dream, you see they are real. Just like some of my patients, they're actually talking to their mothers, okay, when their mother already dead. So to them, it's very real. So they have that image. And then in their mind, maybe the image is one of listening to a Dhamma talk or offering the flower or the incense to the Buddha. So during that time, they see themselves like that, or see the image of the flower, and then even if they're dying, their hands sort of try to clasp together, and then they die. Oh, sure, go to heaven or human. Depends on what was the mind state when they were doing this. So, for example, many of us were chanting, right? We made offering to the Buddha. In the subconscious, a lot of us have attachment to existence, to living, okay, to be around. So existence, but during this time, we're just thinking of maybe, I want to practice the Dhamma. I want to be with the Dhamma. And then this existence, there may be a subconscious attachment that we have to be a human or to be a heavenly beings, okay? And all this will, with the support of the offering of the flower, result in the new life as either a human or a deva. A human, the image is usually a destination of a red color, or a deva. I can see deva, so I can see very bright color, very bright light. And then we see clearly there may be other visions there. Or maybe before you're dying, your mind is very weak, and then you remember you were stealing something, or you're quarreling, you actually make some changes in your accounts, your book, and so on. And then just before you die, the mind is one that's very crinkled, with a lot of greed or fear. Fear is aversion. Okay, then you just die, and then you sink into either a ghostly realm or a hell being. Not based on your wish, but based on the delusion and the root of the karma before you die. Okay, so that is a mechanism of death and rebirth. And, so if we talk about dependent origination, the gist of it is in the 12 links of dependent origination. This is the mechanism behind this death, rebirth, existence, death, rebirth, existence process. So if you were to look at all this whole process of alive, dead, then there is a certain pattern and certain laws that comes to it, and this is it. Because if you understand this, you know how to make an end. Okay, so there are roots of ignorance, clinging, and craving. Because of craving, clinging, and ignorance, like for example, because of the wish to be reborn as a human, so that I can listen to Dhamma, or be reborn. Listen to Dhamma, but in the air condition of heavenly realms, more comfortable, okay, and can live a long life, and the mind is very sharp, can practice better. So these are all ignorance and attachment. Okay, so all this ignorance and attachment will cause us to do karma, good and bad. So those who are wiser will do good karma. Those who are not so wise, in order to get what they want, they have no moral fiber, okay, of sort. So they will steal, they will kill, and so on. So that is volitional formations and becoming. Okay, these two are linked. Because dependent origination, you can understand it in 3 lives. It's to be understood in 3 lives, actually. So with the volitional formations rooted in ignorance, which is also together with clinging, craving, even though it's ignorance only, mind happens with a lot of constituents together. So craving and clinging is also there. And then subsequent minds is karma, right? to do things. And then with that, upon death, the consciousness here refers to rebirth consciousness, the new life consciousness. And with that consciousness is co-nascence conditionality. It happens together with the mentality and materiality. With the materiality, it is association. So they happen together. Consciousness, mentality, materiality, mutually dependent. So it's mutuality. And then with this as a basis, because of the karma, and you'll have all the six sense bases arising. Eye, ear, nose, even in the embryo, okay, started to have that. Then with the six sense bases, you will sure have contact, even in the mother's womb. The skin, okay, you can feel the warmth. Sometimes they can be disturbed, and then they start to kick the mother, So they can have sensation, okay? Mostly fetus are in a sleep, right? But sometimes they are awake a while and then go into sleep. Then they are born immediately. You can have bright lights, cold air, dry air, loud noise, funny smell, funny taste. Cannot breathe, you have to breathe, and then you cry. So all these are the contact and then feeling. So in the mother's womb, the feeling is warm and is pleasant. Delivery, the feeling is harsh, bright, disturbing. And then with the feeling, there is craving. You want to go back to the warmth of the mother's womb. This is just an example. You want to be you want to have the warmth of a human being. And maybe later in your life, you translate that, I need love, I need friendship, I need companion. So this is, I suspect, is rooted around this time. Okay, we all, we all started to have attachment and craving to fellow human beings, and every time we are in the mother's womb, having suckling milk and all that, then there is a reinforcement of that craving and the addiction. The clinging is actually repeated craving. Okay, so there's an addiction to warmth and the association of security, love, self-esteem, actualization, the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And because of all these needs, said, unsaid, explicit, implicit, we do all sorts of things in our lives. It governs our decisions, our behaviors, our activities, thus our personality, our character, and thus our destiny. Okay? So with that, we do all sorts of karma all the way until the end of life, and then the becoming is the karmic force and result in birth. And with birth, surely there will be aging, sickness, and death. Okay? Even someone pass away at a young age, there is a few years of aging, right? So this is the dependent origination process. It's driven by the fire of lust, the snare of aversion, right? The something, I can't remember, the river, right, of delusion. Go back to the Dhammapada verse. So it's dependent, it's determined by that, and we're reborn in this existence again and again, either here, there, anywhere. And in all these existences, we accumulate habits of activities, behavior, personality, driven by your craving, clinging, and all that, right? And with that, if you have been reborn as a snake for a long, long time, even the Buddha is in front of you, you will not be able to understand the Dhamma. Okay? So a few words on karma, okay? Because when we're dying, it's karma, right? We are helpless to karma, and so that's why we take refuge in wholesome karma. Wholesome karma is wholesome mind. Wholesome mind is the next slide. It is the path, okay? So volitional formations have karmic force. Ethical volitional formations, which is based on non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, will create good karma. So the priority of the karma that ripens depends on weighty karma, habitual karma, death proximal karma, and residual karma. So it's about the just before you die, right? What is the image that appears before you die? It depends on what deeds you have done, either with speech or body or even mind. So those that are very strong and powerful, the weighty ones, such as attaining to jhana, okay, or the unwholesome one, killing of a parent, okay, all this will dominate your last thought moment. And then, even if you've done a lot of good deeds, like King Ajatasattu, he killed his father. The Buddha said if he had not killed his father, he would have been enlightened after the Sumanapala Sutta, right? The second sutta of the Digha Nikaya. But because this is a weighty karma, he has to go to hell. It's not the Buddha says so, it is the law of karma. Okay? And if you don't have a weighty karma like most of us, we have not killed our parents, we have not attained to jhana, then the one that will ripen is the habit. So it's very important that we take care of our habits. Whether we have an altar at home, make offering, paying respect to the Buddha. Don't just disregard this as rites and rituals. They are important habits, okay? Important to sort of shape our personality and our mind. Or if you say, when you see an ant, you always kill, see a mosquito, always kill, it becomes a habit. Okay? Then you have a little bit of a violent streak in you. Don't like you violent, So this become habit. Death proximate karma is just before a person passes away, what actually happened. So like there is a story in the scripture of a king who has a lot of faith in the Buddha. So before he died, he was being fanned by his servant. Then for a moment, the fan came in front of his eye. He couldn't see the stupa he couldn't see something that symbolizes the Buddha from in front, right? Then he died with anger. Then he went into the lower realm, even though he had been having a very wholesome existence. So that is death proximate karma. But usually, if you have been having very good karma, even lower existence will, chances are it may not last so long. Depends on the karma, of course, Residual karma is the rest of the karma. So good karma, what is good karma? Good karma is actually just volition, which is the sense of intention in every mind state, especially it happens in all the mind states, but in some mind states they are actively creating karma force. For those who know Abhidhamma, I'm referring to the jhavanas. Okay, so they have got karmic force, and this is the one. If the volition is rooted in wholesome roots, this whole mind is rooted in wholesome root. The volition is good karma. And this mind has a certain characteristics. The wholesome mind has a sense of respect for oneself and others, has non-attachment or contentment, and non-hatred or love, has faith or inspiration. The other, I'm using English terms interchangeably. The Pali term is called saddha. Mindfulness, which is fully present and guarding the object. Equanimity, the mind is balanced. And then lightness, softness, tranquility. So all wholesome mind has this quality. So when we talk about mindfulness daily life, we are really talking about keeping the mind wholesome as long as we can. Because all wholesome mind has got mindfulness. So as we drive, our mind wholesome. That means we are either mindful on the breath or sending loving kindness. And when the driver cut our lane, we don't get angry. Okay, that's mindful. Okay, mindfulness usually accompanied by clear comprehension. That means you're mindful, but you know why are you doing what you're doing, whether is it appropriate, and so on. So mindfulness, clear comprehension is always together. So just this is from the suttas. I think it's from I can't remember where's the source. Sorry about this. So as long as there is ignorance and craving, there will be a new existence after death. So as long as we are not an arahant, perhaps only we have got deep concentration, deep samadhi, because of our good karma, we have very good jhana. There's still ignorance and craving, and there will be renewed existence after death. Okay, maybe in Brahma realm. Whether the new existence is in a good plane or a woeful plane depends on the moral quality of the volitional formations, which is the karma, in the Javana mind moments, in the very last thought process. So, back to the original question, I felt that Sutta and that Dhammapada answered, okay? Why are there different kinds of people? Because of karma, being humans or not, being rich or poor, being beautiful or not, being influential or not. This is from the Majjhima Nikaya. The karma determines a lot of our destiny. Okay? Both past lives and present lives. Decisive natural decisive supports are supporting conditions why we are like what we are, because we have certain inspiration, aspirations, or activities in the past that sort of create a kind of habit for us. Now, it's easier for us to paint because we have been an artist in the past. It's easier for me to learn music because I have learned music in the past. That kind of understanding. Object conditions. Objects contact with the six sense doors and the chain reaction that follows, and presence conditions is the law of the minds that determines all our minds. So it's because of this there are different kinds of people. I have finished talking about the Dhammapada, but before I end, I would like to share with you another Dhammapada, which after reading that one, I was so inspired, I want to continue. I flipped to another page. It's called The Weaver's Girl, and it was really good. It's related to this one. It's related to the previous Dhammapada. The world is indeed blind. Few are those who deeply see. Like the birds escaping from a net, few will go to heaven. So Dhammapada 174. The story goes like this. There was once the Buddha went to a certain village, and a girl who was a daughter of a weaver went to listen. And the Buddha gave a talk about meditation on death, Marananusati. Meditation on death is like this. You just have to sit like just now you were sitting, close your eyes, and then you just recall this concept that I will surely die. I will surely die one day. Just recall like this, I will surely die. If you like some help with a vision, you can visualize yourself lying on your deathbed, having your last few breaths. I will surely die. I will surely die. And then the last breath. And then you just stay with the concept that you will surely die. So with that, and if you're sufficiently primed because of natural decisive support from the past, you can go into deep samadhi, deep concentration. And this weaver's daughter learned that, and for 3 years, every day without fail, she will practice mindfulness on death. And one day, the Buddha, as usual, early in the morning, around I think 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., his routine is to enter into Maha Karuna Samapatti, which is the attainment of great compassion, a bit like X-Men. He just look at the whole world, okay, and read all the minds and see whose mind is ready to and ripen to attain to Nibbana. And he saw this weaver's girl. And then he knows that he will have to see her, and he will ask 4 questions. At the end of the 4 questions, she will attain to stream entry. That means she will realize Nibbana. Okay? And she will die on that day. And so the Buddha took his journey all the way to that village. And the villagers heard the Buddha is coming. They prepared meals for him and offered to the Buddha. After the meal, the weaver's girl was not there yet. So the Buddha sat quietly. Usually after the meal, he will give a Dhamma talk. And the villagers were very puzzled. The Buddha is very quiet, still not giving Dhamma talk yet. Then they were just waiting. But in this book, it's very interesting if you read it. He says that When the Buddha doesn't utter a word, no being there to speak a word. Everybody just sit there, waiting patiently. Now the scene, I go back to the weaver's shop. So the weaver's daughter heard that the Buddha was coming. He wanted to come and see the Buddha. He had so much faith. She had so much faith. Since 3 years ago, she learned Marananusati. She wanted to come and see the Buddha again. But before she left the house, the father asked her to, you better finish that piece of cloth. Otherwise, I will hit you. Okay? So she had no choice. She sort of wait, should I go and listen to Buddha? But if I go and listen to Buddha, my father will hit me. I better quickly finish this. So she quickly finished weaving the piece of cloth. After she finished, she went to the Buddha. So everybody was in front of the Buddha and she was standing behind the crowd, just arrived. And the Buddha saw her. And then she saw the Buddha. And she saw the Buddha looking at her. She immediately knew the Buddha is asking me to come to the fore. And she walked forward. And then the Buddha looked at her, but the Buddha was thinking something else. He was thinking, if she doesn't come, she will die today as a worldling. Okay, so when he looked at her, she came forward and to the front like this. Then the Buddha asked 4 questions to the crowd. The first question was, do you know? And then the weaver's daughter said, I do not know. And now everybody is, what? Then the Buddha asked the second question. What was the second question? Do you know again? The second question is the same. Do you know? Then the weaver's daughter said, I do not know. Everybody was, again. The third question was, do you not know? Then the weaver's daughter said, I know. And the last question was, do you know? Then the weaver's daughter said, I do not know. And then everybody were very puzzled and was like a bit shocked at the Buddha's answer. And the Buddha says that, very good, you've answered correctly. Then the villagers asked the Buddha, what? I don't understand. Why is the answer correct? And why did you ask the question? And so the Buddha asked, when I said, do you know? You said you don't know. Why do you say you don't know? Then she said that, no, sorry. The first question is, where do you come from? I don't know. Second question is, where are you going? I don't know. Do you not know? I know. Do you know? I don't know. So this is the 4 questions and the 4 answers. Where do you come from? The Buddha asked the weaver's daughter. The weaver's daughter said that, Buddha, surely know I came from the weaver's shop. But you ask this question, surely you mean something else. You must mean, where was I before I was born as a human being? I do not know. Then the Buddha says, correct. That was the intention of the question. Then the next question is, where are you going? Surely it's not about me going home. Surely it's about where am I be going after death? And I do not know. Then the Buddha says, very good. That is the answer. The third question is, do you not know? Surely the Buddha is asking me whether I will die. Of course I know I will die. This has been my practice for the last 33 years. And the Buddha says, yes, very good. Do you know? When the Buddha asks, do you know, it surely means, do I know when will I die? Of course I don't. I don't. Then the Buddha says, yes, that's very good. Then he gave this Dhammapada. The world is indeed blind. Few are those who deeply see, like the birds escaping from a net. Few will go to heaven. most beings in the world do not know where they came from, what was their previous lives, what was the causes and conditions resulting in this particular good life or bad life. And they take things for granted without a hint of respect or gratitude. Most of people live life like that, no? Where do we go? If you had known your destiny, you may not have lived your life like this. Okay? You would have known that, oh, these are the things that are important to do. People do not, they may understand, they may believe in dependent origination or life after death, but they may not really know that it is real. They do not see. And so they live life recklessly, heedlessly, as if they know, as if they are fully in control, when we are all helpless in the face of karma. Not exactly helpless, there are things that we can do, but we are almost helpless in the face of Dhamma. And we do not know where we are going. And sometimes we do not know that we will die. Actually, we all know scientifically, but it doesn't dawn on us that we will surely die. And we also do not realize that actually you can't tell when you're going to die. And so after the weaver's daughter answered and the Buddha's affirmed her understanding, she attained to Sotapanna. She realized Nibbana. Sometimes it sounds very easy, right? But the conditions, we can't compare. Everyone has different conditions. And being in front of the Buddha, the feeling is different. Right? Do you believe that? Okay. And the feeling is different, and the mind quality is different, and it can go into concentration easily. And when the Buddha says something, you can see many things at the same time. Okay. So she attained to Nibbana, and she went home, and the father was sleeping on the machine, the weaving machine. And she called out to the father, very near the machine. The father stood up, the machine lost balance, crashed onto her, and she died. The father was stricken with grief, went to see the Buddha, and the Buddha taught him the Dhamma, and the father attained to Arahatship. So this was the whole story, and the story behind the Dhammapada. Not directly related, but it is related. Because the first Dhammapada is about causality, rooted in the roots of impurities. And the causalities and the understanding requires understanding of past lives and future lives. And most of us do not know this. And we are not aware that we are not aware that we can die anytime, or that we will surely die. And because of that, sometimes we live our life heedlessly without controlling our speech and action. Okay? That's all. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Any question and answers? Questions?
Thank you, brother, for your talk. Just now you were mentioning about the Dhammapada. I think there are many versions of the Dhammapada available in. So I was just wondering whether there's a definitive version that you would recommend for reading purposes. Thank you.
I don't think I can answer your questions very well. I used to learn Buddhism systematically in Buddhist library last time, but it's been too long already. So nowadays, if I want to refer to Dhammapada, I just Google, and then sometimes whichever is convenient. But I also look at who is the author, who is the translator. So among the various translators, I like Bhikkhu Bodhi. But there are many other translators. Thanissaro Bhikkhu, Brother Pia Tan and so on. So they also do a good job in translation. So I would look at I can't understand Pali, although I went for the class, but I think I've forgotten already. Then I read the words. So I try to get the meaning. But it's the stories that is very helpful. It helps you understand the essence of the gist behind the verse. But I have this to say about can I call it scholarship? I have something to say about scholarship. Whatever we read now, most of the time is either English translation or Chinese translations. Depends on your education, your literacy, and so on. They are really as good as the translator's effort in being neutral, honest. And there are moments that he may have to, between two possible interpretations, he may have to choose one based on his understanding. So there are limitations to translation. So when we read translations of the scriptures, we need to know that they are really fingers pointing to the moon. Be they there are people who say only the Sutanta is Buddha's teachings, the commentaries and the Abhidhamma are not Buddha's teachings and so on. But I also question that even the Sutantas is through translation. Even if you understand the Pali, it's limited by your understanding of the Pali language and your understanding of the practice. So, and commentarial text is also, the ancient commentarial texts are in Pali. Okay? And it's done ancient. Some of the commentarial texts have no authors because it's so ancient. So, we have to take all this in as a reference only. Okay? Although an important reference that we have to put with a lot of respect and high regards. And then we have to put into practice. And putting into practice, the most important factor is the spiritual friend or spiritual friends. Like the Buddha said, he is the spiritual friend of all beings. Okay? And how do you look for the spiritual friends? You have to investigate and test whether the things that this person does, this person says, is there a hint of greed, hatred, delusion in it? And it's not just one time, but many times. And it's not just sometimes, but a long time. And it's not just cursorily listening and watching, but also listening and watching deeply with wisdom. Then after a period of time, you come to a time, because of past conditions, Upanisaya, Pachayo, Karma and everything, we will make a leap of faith. This shall be my teacher. With that, we will take an effort to pay a visit, and we'll pay respect, and we will pay attention, and we will listen. And we will listen, and we will remember. We will think and contemplate and assimilate and put into practice. And at times we have questions, we go back to the teacher and then check and then put back into practice. And the practice requires energy, and it is the Eightfold Path. Okay, so the practice begins with the right view, right way of thinking, which is wholesome mind, and having a right behavior of the speech and the action, as well as livelihood as lay people, because it consumes our life. And putting effort to maintain the mind wholesome rather than unwholesome, that's right effort. And then mindful and clearly comprehending on the four foundations of mindfulness, beginning with the body. And as you take object one by one, you go to the depth of the concentration as possible, and that is the path factors of concentration. And when there's concentration, the Buddha described as first, second, or third, or fourth jhana, while the commentary texts also include near jhana as well as the immaterial jhana. As long as there's samadhi, the 5 hindrances will be suppressed. When the 5 hindrances are suppressed, the mind is clear and fully objective, unbiased. When it is fully objective and unbiased, and observe the 5 aggregates according to the teachings of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you will see things as they are, starting from materiality, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, as well as all the other mental factors and consciousness. And there are causes. How these arise because of that arise because of that. As you do this exercise again and again, the mind will gain momentum. It is understanding. Things become very, very clear. A bit like aha, 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 series of insights. And we will see that, oh, this is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is a causation and a mechanism. This is cessation. And these are the path factors leading to cessation. And you read the scriptures again, Dhammapada, the suttas, the Abhidhamma, the commentarial text, the Vinaya. You read with understanding and insight. You're no longer captive of the translator. Yeah, so which version is the one but I really can't tell. But you need to know limitations of all translations. And the ultimate authority is the practice. But the practice requires the teacher. And to know which teacher requires effort, doing due diligence. And it has to have faith. Without faith, you will give up halfway. So wisdom and faith need to balance. And requires past karma, good conditions. Did I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
The Buddhists talk about 5 weighty karma. So some also talk about the 6th one. Do you know what the 6th one is, please?
Okay. I can't remember, but what I can remember is this. Weighty karma is killing a father, killing a mother, injuring the Buddha, causing schism in the Sangha, right? I think along the way there's also a wrong view of nihilism, which is karma has no effect. There is no life after this life. There is no past life. There's no effect of good or bad. Ethics has got no impact. Of course, there are some of us who don't believe in past life, future. It's not yet wrong view unless you convict onto it. That there is no past life, no future life, and you strongly believe in it, it becomes a wrong view. It becomes that very serious wrong view. Otherwise, most of us are in a kind of a doubtful, skeptical, I've not really see past life, future life. Maybe that is, no energy to it is okay, but I think it's okay lah. But one of the weighty karma is that insisting on the wrong view.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'll sum it. First one, something like harming the Buddha, physical Buddha.
Yes.
And then next one,
killing of the mother, father, mother, schism, causing split of the Sangha. Yes. Wrong view. The one that is, there are many kinds of wrong views, including belief in eternal life, a creator God. Those are not so weighty. The weighty one is those who believe that there is absolute materiality, materialism.
Okay, so these are the 5 we all agree, but then there are people who say there is another one, 6. They call it the 6th prime. So the 6th one is something like imaginative.
Okay, I don't know. I will have to Google. Maybe later we can Google the 6 Vedic karmas, yeah. I can't answer you. I'm sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Brother Ng. I just have a curiosity. From your first or second slide about the 24 conditionalities, there are separation between the left one and right one, like 13 items on the left and 11 items on the right. Just wondering what is the difference between the two groups. Thanks.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry about that. It's just 1 to 24, but on this old iPad, I couldn't remember the other column. Yeah, it's 1 to 24.
Thank you for the talk. When you mention teacher, is it a physical manifestation, as in, is it a person, or can the teacher actually come from within?
Oh, okay. I think from the suttas, the Buddha is referring to real spiritual friends, like the Buddhist fellowship, but particularly he used himself as an example. So I interpret it as you also need a teacher. Okay. Then, and my own experience, having a teacher is crucial in the practice. Not just somebody who is sitting on the stage and you listen from afar. That is also important. It gives you the inspiration. But the living together in a same compound, understanding how the teacher behaved himself, some very difficult decisions, how the teacher made the decisions, how the teacher correct you when you're wrong, even simple things like how you dress yourselves. These are the teachings also, not just the suttas or the Dhamma talks. My own experience is that is very important because the way, the life, the experience is very varied and heterogeneous. Just suttas alone doesn't answer a lot of questions. Like for example, you have a very difficult time with your boss. You can read the sutta, very difficult to find answer, except some hints at it. So maybe you ask the teacher, what will he do? So the teacher might have been dealt with robbery or somebody land grab into the land, how does she deal with this? How they deal with it, like Ajahn Brahmavamso gave a very good example last time, right? His monastery was infested with termites. What was his decision? So it is these real life examples that really we learn from the teacher. But on the other hand, you're talking about the teacher inside. I think it's not the one referred in the suttas, but if we are referring to some kind of past conditions that intuitively and naturally we have a certain guidance from it. Maybe it's the faith of the triple gem, and maybe it is a certain understanding of letting go and so on, and then your behavior is one that is very mindful, contented, grateful usually, and you call this your guidance. That is also very good. If you like to personify that conscience as teacher, by all means, I think. Yeah, but that's one way of understanding. But the other way is it is good to listen and study the Dhamma, but one day, when the time is right for you, do learn the Dhamma deeply, either through a retreat like 1 day or 10 days or 7 days or 1 month or even longer, or just be a kapya of a teacher, a supporter of a teacher. Then you learn how they behave, whether there's still anger, there's still greed, and if there's anger or greed, how do you reconcile, how do you work with that, and so on. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Let's say thanks to Dr. Wong again. Let's say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.